We're live. I'm excited to talk with you guys today. I'm going to pull this up on my phone so that I can see the comments as they come through. And I can. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Oh, weird. The video's not popping up for me. That's so odd. Test. This is peculiar. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I was really concerned. I'm like, that's not working. Okay. We're just going to tag everyone here, and then we're going to hop in. Hope you guys are having a super good morning, and I'm excited to chat about this today. We're going to be talking a little bit about overcoming fear and why that's so significant. Let's overcome fear now. Cool. So we'll give it a second. I was having some thoughts this morning, and I was thinking about, we're going to do the New Year really soon, and I was just thinking, why is it that people, just in general, right, don't get started with something? And it led me down kind of a path of thinking that I think can benefit a lot of us. So if we're thinking about why is it that we want something, but we don't pursue it? Meaning that a lot of us, and I've been here in the past too, are at a point or been at a point in the past that we want to pursue a better body. We want to pursue better health. We want to be able to pursue just even anything, but let's just keep it body for now. But we don't. And I believe that it comes down to a couple core things. And one of those core things is belief, right? If you're already a client with us, you already know that we say this a lot. One of the precursors to getting any result you want is belief. A precursor to doing any action at all is belief. Because think about it, if you don't believe that an action you're going to do is going to get you a desired result, how motivated are you to do that thing? The answer is not at all. So this goes for anything. But the first step to be able to, transform your body, get a different result, get the health you want, work out more consistently, is establishing belief. Now, what is belief? Belief is just the certainty that what you're going to do is going to get you a certain result. And I think the reason that a lot of us do not have the certainty is because we failed in the past. Think about it. I like the analogy, I don't know if you guys have ever been to the circus, or if you've ever been to those shows, like the Cirque du Soleil shows, where you see these performers and they have this lion and they open the lion's mouth and they stick their head in it. Absolutely insane. I don't think I could ever have the courage to do that. But there's also a part of the show where the lion's in a cage and the trainer's in front of them, and the lion could just step out and rip the trainer apart, but doesn't. He just sits there in the cage. How is that possible that this king of the jungle, this absolute beast, just doesn't do anything? And I think it's because of learned behavior. You see, that lion, when it was first maybe taken from its environment, was sitting in the cage and would try to get out. And every time he'd get out, he'd get whipped or he'd get punished. So he'd step out, punish, and he'd go back in the cage. And then he'd get enough courage to step out again, boom, punished. And that happened again and again and again and again and again until eventually, guess what? The lion no longer tries to step out of the cage. The other example is in the circus as well, you have the elephant, who, when the elephant's a baby, the way they train these elephants is they take a rope tied around their leg and they tie it to the stake of the tent. And what happens is the elephant tries to break away, tries to pull away as hard as it possibly can, tries to pull away, and it fails and it stops. And then once it turns about a year old, it stops pulling until eventually it becomes an adult. And guess what? The elephant has the power, the strength, the capability to actually pull that entire tent down, but doesn't. Why? Because it's been conditioned time and time again that you cannot do it. So why try? The reason I think those stories are so important is because I think it so vividly illustrates where a lot of us are in our journey. You see, we've tried things in the past. We've done the keto, we've done the Weight Watchers, we've done everything. We've done the semaglutide, we've done, in some cases, even more extreme, the gastric bypass, and none of it has worked. You've essentially gotten a stimulus that every time I try, I fail. So why would I try again? I don't blame you. I do not blame you, because I think anybody would stop. Anybody in their right mind would say, of course, it's not possible. Now, the unfortunate part about that is, number one, it is possible. And I'm not saying, hey, take my word for it. I'm saying because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen people transform their body and be able to sustain it years later. And these people aren't special. So I know that you have the capability to do it. Secondly, it's not even about, I'll say, well, actually, instead of saying that, going in this direction. So the first thing we need, if we really want to be able to break through and we want to be able to get started again, is we have to have a belief. So how can we go about, if this is the truth, how can we go about cultivating this belief? And I think it comes from getting new information, right? They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So of course, we're not insane. So if you've tried to diet and crash diet before and it hasn't worked, of course you're not going to try again, maybe after the second or third time, because it hasn't worked, right? But have you tried everything? And I think that if we really think about it, we know we haven't tried everything, because if you've tried everything, you'd be where you want to be. And I think that a lot of the times it's an easier approach to say, well, I have tried everything and my body's just different, and therefore I'm not going to try. But again, that is a surefire recipe for never getting where you want to be, never getting to the point you want to be able to get to. If you want to be able to break through, we need a different approach. Because if you've seen my content for any amount of time, you know that I'm a big believer that you can get there. And if what you've tried hasn't worked, you just need a different approach. I believe it was Tony Robbins. He says, he has a story about children. And he says, all right, you take a baby, right? And they're trying to learn how to walk. And, they're a toddler. And I just went through this. My son's 18 months old now. So it's very clear in my mind. I remember seeing it happen. What would happen is he'd start to get up off of the ground and he'd maybe wobble, take a step, and then he'd fall. Do you think I went over to him and I was like, hey, Kale, you did your best, but I guess walking's not for you? No. What does he do? He gets back up, tries again, falls. And he does that so many times until eventually he learns how to walk. Magic formula. But what happens is, for us, we take those steps and we fail so many times, and our ego is attached to it, and how we view ourselves is attached to it. And then we don't want to try anymore because it hurts and it's painful. What my suggestion is, to be able to break through that, is to get curious, to ask a different question. Our questions control our thinking. If we ask a question that is something like, man, why can't I lose weight? Your brain will come up with an answer. And if you ask yourself that question and you've just failed the last 5 things you've tried over the last 5 or 6 years, your brain has to come up with an answer. And that answer that it comes up with is probably not an empowering one. It's probably something like, hey, you can't lose weight because, oh, you remember? Everyone in your family's overweight. So it's probably just genetic. Or number 2, maybe it's your hormones. You did get your blood panels done. Your hormones are off. So maybe it's probably that. That's why you can't lose weight. So you probably shouldn't try. And we're giving power to things outside our control. Now, am I here to say that those things play no effect? No, of course they do. But are they roadblocks? No, they're not. Think of them more like resistance. Think of them more like headwinds. If you're outside and a hurricane's coming, right? And you have 20-mile-per-hour winds blowing against you, can you still move forward? Yes, you can. Is it comfortable? Not necessarily. Is it harder than if there were no winds? Yes, but can you still move forward? The answer is fuck yeah. So do not let the headwinds that you're currently experiencing in your life be the thing that stops you from pursuing what you want to pursue. We all have shit going on. We all have headwinds. And I'm not just talking about the stress of life and things like that. I'm talking about things that are going on within you, right? Hormone imbalances, and it could be anything. But do not let these headwinds be the thing that stops you. Because I can promise you that these things do not define whether you get results. What defines whether you get results is, can you start and never stop again? You're probably familiar with this game of the finite and infinite games, if you will. If you've never heard of that, I recommend go to YouTube, make it in your notes. Go to YouTube, type in Simon Sinek. He's popularized it again. It's called Infinite and Finite Games. The difference between infinite and finite games are really simple. Finite games have an end. You can win them. And a lot of people approach weight loss as a finite game. I'm trying to lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds. I'm trying to get there. And because that's the objective, they push and they deprive and they go all in, which I think is admirable, because they're essentially saying, no more. I'm going to do it and I'm going all in. And that's cool because they got started. But the problem with playing a finite game is it ends. And a lot of the times people hit their goal and they celebrate, but then there's no more goal. They're not playing the game anymore. And then they start to pull off the gas. And now they go back to what they were doing because that was too intense or too strong. Whereas an infinite game, the goal, the way you win an infinite game is starting and never stopping again. How do you do that? You do it by essentially planning to never stop. Now, I'll be honest with you, infinite games scare a lot of people. They scare me. This idea of starting and never stopping again, ugh. But what if you played the game differently? What if instead of trying to play an infinite game the way you played a finite game, which is deprive yourself and go all in, instead, your number one priority was just starting and never stopping again, no matter how slow your progress was? That is the recipe to be able to start and never stop again. Because again, how long can you do easy for? You already know the answer, right? It's forever. Even if your progress was 1% per day, you get 1% better every day. You've probably heard this before. In a year, you'd be 37 times better than where you currently are. That's insane. So instead of trying to get, let's say in 6 weeks, 100% change, in 6 weeks, just with 1% change, maybe that's, it's a little over 42%, unless you're including compound interest. But instead of going hardcore for 6 weeks and then, the next 6 weeks, not hardcore, and maybe in the next 6 months, because we start on a cycle of guilt because we stopped, instead, just focus on starting and never stopping again. The way I like to think about weight loss is like we're building a brick house. This is not something like you've probably heard, actually, the I don't know if it's a fairy tale. No, it's not a fairy tale. It's a folk tale, I guess, of the Three Little Pigs, right? You got the Three Little Pigs. And the wolf is coming, and he huffs and puffs. And the first pig, he makes his house out of hay. I think it's straw, right? And what happens? The wolf huffs and he puffs and he blows the whole thing down. Now, that first pig, it took him maybe 30 minutes to build that. And he spent the rest of the time just hanging out. And he blew it over. The next pig, I think he built it out of sticks, right? And that's those sticks, again, it took him a little bit longer, but he still blew it over. Only the pig that built it out of bricks, that took the longest, actually has it stick. So if we want something to stick, it's kind of taking that from the pigs as well. It's building our new foundation brick by brick. And what is this foundation? Right? It's not, I think the way we can describe this foundation that we're building, it's not tangible. It's intangible. And the way that we can describe this actual brick house that we're building is our identity. You probably heard this before, but I believe the strongest force in the human personality is to stay consistent with the way we see ourselves. You will always be consistent with actions that are in I'll say in alignment with who you believe you are. That's profound. So if we ever want to be able to do actions to get a desired result consistently, we actually fundamentally have to change our identity. Now, how do we go about changing our identity? And before we actually go into that, let's just really quickly break that down. Do you believe me? I don't know. Look, how do you define yourself? Who are you? The majority of you, obviously, are nurses, right? I would actually, 100% of you are nurses. The majority of you are also mothers. Do you define yourself as a mother? Are you a mother? Yes, right? Are you a good mother? Yes, right? What are the things good mothers do? Guess what? You're probably doing them. Why? Because we will always act in accordance to the strongest force in the human personality is doing things that are consistent with the way we see ourselves. The things that you believe you are fundamentally, who you are, you will never stop. For me, I'm an athlete. I'm a father. I'm a husband. That's who I am first, right? I'm a coach. And then those things, like at this point in my life, I don't think about exercise. It just happens. It happens because it's who I am, right? Fundamentally. Now, how do we get these actions to happen? How do we go to change your identity over time? Small habits. You have to collect evidence. And this is the slow process. Now, this process is slow, yes, but it doesn't have to be arduous. If you think about how your identity was formed, even as a young adult, it happens because your brain collects evidence for who you are. For example, if you have been going to the gym, not every day, but 3 times a week for the last 3 years, no matter what you're doing in the gym, even if it's not super intense, but you're going and you're having a light workout to moderate workout, your brain starts to associate those actions with, well, I'm a fit person. It's who I am. And does it take 3 years to get that solidified? No, it actually happens relatively quickly. But it's usually just at the precipice, just far enough out where people don't push through to it. Because again, human beings are really bad fundamentally at looking at the future and thinking about, I'll just say, making rational decisions. Everyone believes that they're rational. And I think that, that's kind of one of the funny things about being a human. We make emotional decisions and then back them up with logic. So if you really want to be able to stick to something short term, even in moderate term, before that identity takes place, and even long term, we want to make sure that this is in line with your emotions, that this does not feel hard, and that it feels relatively easy. Because how long can you do easy for? You can do it forever, right? I do see a comment come through. Kira says, I'm listening, so many true words. Here's to never stopping. That's what it's about. If this is helpful at all, feel free to just drop a comment, say, hey, ask a question. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Am I blowing smoke? What do you think? Feel free to like this if you want. The main purpose of this video right now, honestly, is for you to be able to just get started, because the fear of failure is what's stopping us. Just like the analogies we were using before with the lion and the elephant. Why am I going to try again if I'm just going to fail? And then go through all that pain. It's just safer to stay where you are. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable if I focus on it, but if I just pack it down behind me and I crush all the mirrors in my house and I take them down and I don't think about how I feel and I distract myself and I go on social media and I binge Netflix and I just don't think about it, I'll be okay. But you and I both know that that's not a life that's worth living, in my opinion. A life that's worth living is one that you can be comfortable with self, that you can sit down on a couch and just stare at a wall and not feel bad, not feel the anxiety, the frustration of life that comes in. A lot of what we're doing in life is just coping. Because life's like, there's a lot of things that are the way that we don't want them to be. And I'm not up here on some pedestal saying oh man, life's life's easy. Like, no, life's hard. And also, I don't even have everything in my life the way I want it. However, you better believe that I look at it, not every day, but most days, and I see what's missing and what can I solve and what can I improve and how can I grow, instead of ignoring it, instead of pushing it down, which is the easier way. And I've had plenty of times in my life man, I used to be super addicted to video games. I probably still am in some degree, right? Video games were my way of escaping. And I would just go and I'd play for crazy amounts of time. And I'd be down there in that cave because I didn't want to face what was going on in my life, right? And this was in my early 20s as I was starting to achieve stuff. But at the same time, I was still very unhappy with where I was. So I would, just try to distract myself. If there's anything that I'm telling you right now, it's to, take a look. Is life the way you want it? Have we been, just trying to survive? I believe as human beings, we weren't meant to survive. We were meant to thrive, especially in today's day and age. There's so much technology. There's so much available to us. We live in America. We have so much opportunity. But the majority of Americans are, I believe wholeheartedly that the body follows the mind. And if our bodies aren't the way we want it, most likely our mind isn't where we want it yet. That's why a lot of what we focus on, we call it the psychology of weight loss, but really it's just psychology. It's focusing on the foundation so that you can build everything on top of it. It's funny. I have clients that have come back to me and said, man, it's funny, when I worked with you for coaching, I was hesitant because it's more than I've ever spent working with a coach. But since I worked on my body and worked on my mind, I've actually pursued greater education, and now I make, 25 to 30% from what I made before. And it's just crazy how when we focus on the foundation of life, the physical body, the emotions and meaning, everything can build from that. That's why I do what I do. I've done other things. Like I've been doing this for about 15 years, and I've tasted other things because when I started this, I was pretty young. And, I just wanted to see, what else is out there? Because I never got that tasting period. And there is nothing that fuels me up more than seeing either a current client or a past client. Like I had Carla, you guys probably know Carla. She lost 130 pounds. She's kind of like I don't want to say the poster girl, but she kind of is, of like RM body transformations. And she's transformed, and it's been 6 years since her transformation. She looks amazing, went from being 130 pounds overweight to getting into her red bikini, and it's great. She's maintained it ever since. But the thing I love the most is getting those messages 6 years later. Hey, life's amazing. I'm so glad I met you when I met you. And like that to me is like a mission worth pursuing, right? And I think that's why probably the majority of you guys got into nursing, because you feel like you're making a difference. You feel like you're actually doing something. Like imagine if all of us just went to, nothing wrong with it, but data entry jobs, and that's all we were doing, and we did not have any connection or impact to it. We'd probably feel like garbage pretty fast. Why? Because there's no passion behind it. We don't feel like we're making a difference. And I feel like, even though, me personally, I'm not a registered nurse, but I feel like we both have similar missions in this idea of feeling like we need to have a great impact, I did see some comments come through, so I just want to answer them really quick. Kira says, hey, I always hang on every word and make it work for me. Oh, that's really sweet, Kira. Cindy says, replay, please. If you do replays, joining late. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, this will all be replayed here for you as well. And of course, as always, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. Again, the idea here is I want you guys to be able to leave this call, whether you're joining late or starting in the beginning, with just the belief that you can make this work. And this isn't me coming on here to say, hey guys, work with us for coaching because we'll get you there. Like, no, if you want to use this for coaching, fine. But that's not what this group's for. This group is so that you can just start. Like, I've made a lot of the videos in here so that you can just get started. Because I'll be straight up with you. Everyone does not need a coach. And 95% of the RNs in this group will never work with us. That's okay. This group is designed to get you started, not necessarily with us, to start your journey. And that's why I've made the plethora, I guess, or the library of podcasts. And I do believe I've been doing a disservice because for a long time, up until now, as you can see, I'm coming in with no script or no slideshow. up until now, I've only been doing about a podcast a week or every 2 weeks because I wanted to make sure that every time I start a podcast, it would be something that you guys can take actionable action on, and you can take, and it would be evergreen. But what I'm realizing is none of that stuff matters if you don't have the fundamental belief that it will work. So one of the things that I think would be beneficial, and you guys can tell me as you're here and listening, I want to be able, I think, a few times a week, regardless of actions, and I'll keep doing the slideshow videos and, the science of weight loss and all that stuff. Regardless of that stuff, I want to be able to pop on here 2 or 3 times a week and just have a video like this, because I think motivation or inspiration or belief is like bathing, right? You don't do it once and then you're done, right? It doesn't make sense. You don't listen to this now and you're like, all right, I'm done. I'm good. Let's break through. And then you're good forever, usually, right? Because guess what? You're going to start going. And then 3 days from now, you're going to get punched in the fucking face. And obviously not literally, but metaphorically. Something's going to happen. You're going to have a stressor that you need to cope from. And eventually you're going to feel pulled off. And we need something that pulls us back on. So hopefully, whether you're, a client working with me or working with one of our many coaches, and I say many, 4, one of our 4 other coaches, it's a team of us for 5. I want you to be able to have that, because I think that that's the thing that stops us, regardless of your actions, regardless of what you're doing on a daily basis for getting the result you want to get. If you do not have the fundamental belief that you will get there, and that does not stay high, you will stop. Think about it. You can have the best plan in the world. You've probably heard the analogy of the people digging for gold. You've actually probably even seen, it's like a image where you have this person, he's digging for gold, digging for gold, digging for gold. And right before he gets to like all the gold and diamonds, he stops and he turns back because he didn't get anything for the last, however long he's been doing it. My hope is that even if you're not getting the result you're getting, you do not stop. And I'm not saying you do not stop and keep doing what you're doing. You do not stop and you change your approach. Again, I've had the pleasure and opportunity to work with over 1,000 women and some men, but the majority, probably 96% women, over the last 15 years. And I've seen it happen for so many people that probably for some are in the exact same position that you're in currently, which is this even possible for me? And the answer is yes, it is possible. You just have to change your approach. Just like I said before, if you're taking actions and you're not getting the result you want, what do? Change your approach. Well, what happens if, okay, cool, you took those actions, you still didn't get what you want, you change your approach. Well, what happens if you still don't get what you want? You change your approach. Still don't get what you want, change the approach. Doesn't happen, change the approach. Doesn't happen, change the approach. Doesn't happen, change the approach. You keep going until you make it happen. Because think about it. Like, let's think logically just for a second, even though we're emotional creatures. Do you think in all the realm of possibilities of all the actions you could possibly take and make it sustainable, that you have done every single one? Probably not. You probably just don't know what to do next, because the obvious answers are, keto. The obvious answers are stop eating carbs. The obvious answers are work out until you're freaking exhausted all the time. The obvious answers are hustle culture. Just grind, baby. And those generally don't get us to where we want to get to. A couple more comments coming in here. Sheila says, always so encouraging. Just get up and move around. Remember, we all have to start somewhere. 100% Sheila. I think the reason that that's hard to do for a lot of us is, again, with what we talked about before, that idea of starting and, not getting the result we want. So why start again? But also this idea of momentum. If we start something and we don't get the result we want, and the action we're taking is high pain and we don't get the pleasure, of course, we're probably not going to continue. I think the key there, and this is why we follow the approach that we do in line with human emotion, is whatever action you're going to start, if you are starting somewhere, you have to identify what is the action that will be the least amount of effort perceivably, right? Because it's, there's a generality for most people, but you have to make sure for you. Some people, they can go on a 30-minute walk because they're talking to their friend and they're feeling good, and that's great. And that's a 0 out of 10 pain for them. And they can just do that all the time. And that's a great first step for them because they're going to experience experience pleasure with no pain. But for somebody else, that's like, you want me to walk for 30 minutes? Like, it's fucking cold outside. They live in New England like me. This sucks, right? Or they live in Canada. So we have to identify what is on a matrix of pain and pleasure, and pain and results even, what is the lowest amount of pain action you can put into place that will elicit the most result or the most pleasure as you're doing it, or from the result afterwards. And for a lot of people, like, look, if you're looking for the hack, like if you're on here right now looking for the hack, looking for like, what can I do? What's my step one? You just got to get your sleep in. Because I can promise you, since we know this is a game of psychology and a game of emotion, it is really hard to rely on willpower. But you want the best answer to feel motivated? Just improve your sleep, right? You probably know that when you get a great night's sleep, man, you feel like you can take on the world. Things just brush off you. Your emotional resilience is a lot higher. And you know also that when you get a bad night's sleep, things just get up under your skin. And maybe you just want to, put another fucking hole in the wall. And, oh, they said that to me? Oh, when really it had nothing to do with you. They were having also a bad day, or they didn't get a lot of sleep. And you guys, you probably already know, I've talked about strategies in the past on how to improve your sleep. There's a ton of stuff. If you guys are curious, I can talk about that. But just go in the group and type in sleep, and there's a bunch of information there. Gail says, I can say this. I'm not one normally to sit down and listen and actually feel motivated, but this right here actually feels like it literally has a flame. It may not be a large flame, but it feels like I may actually be getting motivated. So thank you. My pleasure. And I hope to do this 2 to 3 times a week because, at first when I was creating content in this group, I actually had to suppress this side of myself because this is naturally who I am. I like to get here and to be able to inspire, and whether you're in California or Florida or Massachusetts, be able to build a connection and hopefully just tell you one thing that can allow you to think a little differently. Hey, maybe I can do this. Maybe this time can be different. And that's where I feel the most fulfilled. That's where I feel fucking fired up. So as much as I'm doing this for you, I'm also kind of doing it for me. Because I love it. It's so fun. But like I was saying, I suppressed this side of myself for a while because I don't want this group to necessarily be all about pump up and all about if you believe and you tell yourself every day that you can do it, you can do it. That's not necessarily what I want this to be. I'm pragmatic, right? As an RN, you can't just go to your patient and say just believe you'll feel better and it'll happen. They'll be like, give me the drugs or give me whatever you need, right? It's a combination. But I will say, after talking with quite a few people in this group, it does not matter what content I post if you will not sit there and listen to it and believe that you can actually have a breakthrough. So here we are. Hopefully this is helpful in some capacity. Donna says, if I only could, I try everything short of sleeping pills. Some nights okay. Oh, for sleep. Yeah. I know that's why I struggle after a week of poor sleep. Okay. So we can go deep on this, or we can stay surface. I'll ask a question and we can go deep. But what I will say is, if your sleep is not where it needs to be, in my experience, there's something else going on, right? Because we have actions that we can put into place, right? There's surface level actions, and then there's going to be deep actions. Let's start surface level. What are those actions? We know 90 minutes before bed, we need to cut off blue light. Phones, blue light. Usually a lot of overhead lights in our house are going to be blue light. TV, blue light. What does blue light do? Blue light stops the natural production of I almost said testosterone. That's not true. Of melatonin, right? Melatonin is going to make you feel sleepy. So that's number one. Do that action. Number two, that's physiological. Mental, we need to be able to clear our mind. A lot of us have a lot of tabs open in our brain. You've probably heard me talk about this before. What happens if you have a PC or a laptop that you have 50 tabs open and you try to open another? What's going to happen? It's not going to work. You're going to crash. And that happens with a lot of us just in general. We have so many tabs open, so many unresolved things in our head that we can't sleep. Because your brain is like, it's like your brain's like a heat-seeking missile. It's always going to try to solve your problem. So if you have like 50 tabs open, one, you probably won't solve anything because it's just like going between the tabs and just like, that's where anxiety comes from, right? I won't say that's where it comes from, but I'll say that can be something that increases anxiety, having too many tabs open, right? So we want to reduce that. Now, assuming that's not the case, it's time to go deeper. And unresolved things can be something light, or they can be micro traumas, or they can be something deeper. And without getting into the specifics of something deeper, I believe that if you can't sleep, fundamentally, if there's a big stressor, a lot of that stress can come. And I'll say this, poor sleep is generally an indicator, in my opinion, not of something physiological. It's generally an indicator that our life conditions do not match our blueprint. And I know this is getting like, a little more pie in the sky, but if our life conditions, meaning how our life is, does not match how we believe life should be, that creates stress. That creates dis-ease in our body. And one of the things that has to happen, and this is going deeper than just like, hey, we got to start exercising. We have to take a serious step back and look at our life and say, is it the way I want it? Because a lot of us are doing things for other people. And the last time that we've sat back and really said, hey, what do I want my life to be, has been a long time. And I think a lot of us, and I've gotten here at times as well, become managers of life, right? I think that RN specifically, it's really easy to get to this place. And it's easy to get to this place because, think about it, you're giving to everyone, but we haven't given to ourselves in a while. But I think that when we really thrive, we are designing our life. We have the hope that, hey, our life conditions, the way they are, does not have to stick. Our blueprint can change. Our blueprint, not our blueprint can change. Our life conditions can change to match that blueprint. Or maybe it's an old blueprint. Maybe that blueprint was there from like 50 years ago. Maybe not that long. 10 years ago, before we had kids and stuff. And maybe that blueprint needs to change. But we are getting a little bit off. And I'm going to wrap this up because I just looked at the time and I've been going for 40 minutes. I feel like I've been going for 5 minutes. That's insane. Anyway. Yeah. Donna, I hear you. It's, right now it's like you're, trying to cope, trying to, manage. And that happens. I'd be interested to go deeper with you if you're interested, just to really see, okay, what is the biggest lever? What is the biggest lever that you can pull? Because I can promise you that how you feel now doesn't have to be how you continue feeling. Right? And usually we just need to know the one next best step, biggest step, right? Gail says, oh no, I work midnight shifts. Sleep is not easy, especially because after my 3 days, I switch over to being awake. And that is physiological, right? I mean, look, you can have the best life, the most beautiful life. But yeah, if your sleep schedule is changing from days to nights, yeah, that's going to affect you. And granted, like, I'm not here to say like, hey, get off nights and go to days. Look, if that's possible, I recommend it because you probably will feel a hell of a lot better. But sometimes that's the reality, and there's a lot of benefits that come from night shift potentially. But I will say that the majority of RNs that I personally worked with that moved from nights to days, the money's not worth it for them. Once they go back to days, they're like, why did I ever do that? But that's them. I'm not saying that's you. But all just thoughts, right? So hopefully it's been beneficial. I want to do this a few times a week. I know I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent at the end. Actually, the whole thing was a tangent. Who am I kidding? But hopefully this is empowering to you guys at all. As always, if you are looking for help on this journey, you don't have to do it alone. There's so many. How can I say this? There's so many resources available in this group that you can just utilize and take advantage of to be able to start your journey. And if you've been here for a while and you're like, hey, I'd really like to be able to work with you or work with one of your coaches, one of our team, you can look somewhere in the group, you can click apply to work with us and set up a call. But I hope that this has helped somebody. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll see you guys soon. If you guys are active clients, just a reminder, tomorrow is our client-only Zoom call, which will be at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're a client, you'll have that link sent to you so you can join, be able to talk to me, be able to talk to other RNs, get motivated, get inspired, get some action, and also just feel kind of that connection as we can see all the faces of the people that are actively on your journey. So again, active clients, that's tomorrow, 5 p.m. And that'll be the Zoom link that gets sent out to you as a reminder. But hopefully this is powerful. Hopefully this is helpful. And I will see you guys soon. You can do it. Oh, where's the end button? Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay, I found it. Bye.